And welcome to Northern Limits Bushcraft and Survival. My name's Grayzy, but today we've got something special going on. We're doing our first collaboration with James. However, we're doing a socially distance at about 350 miles. And today we're going to be covering the top 5 tips and tricks for bushcraft beginners. I'm going to give you mine, and then James is going to give you his. But what we've also got today is we're also in collaboration with Alex from KoloKraft. That's this guy here. And so you don't get 5, you don't get 10, you get 15 tips and tricks in one video. I hope you enjoy it, and let's get to it, ladies and gentlemen. Tip number 1. Bushcraft can be cheap. You don't have to go out and spend a massive fortune on kit just because you've seen somebody else use it on YouTube or Instagram or any other social media feed, or even in real life. The whole point of this is that you need to learn, you need to get efficient, and you need to get confident with the kit that you've got. Start small, build up them skills, and then maybe start thinking about getting your kit. Don't be that guy who's got all the gear but has no idea. You don't want to be taking kit out with you that you're not going to use because you don't know how to use it. That's extra weight for a start. And if you start projecting that you know things, people might start turning to you to show them. But if you then have to turn around and go, I don't know, you're going to look a bit of a silly sausage, aren't you? So don't be that guy. Stay cheap, build up. Tip number 2, be prepared. If you know you're going to go out, what you need to think about is what you're actually going out to go and achieve. If you know it's going to be cold and wet, take your cold and wet warm kit with you, waterproofs, anything that's going to keep your body heat regulated. If you know that you're going to be out for a while, make sure you've got enough water, make sure you've got enough food and snacks and things. And make sure you've got everything good to go. The last thing you want is to have to need something and not have it. Which ties in with my last one. Don't carry any unnecessary kit. So always be prepared in what you're going to do. Because the last thing you want to do is look a bit of a silly sausage out in the hills and so you need to call somebody for help because you've not got the correct equipment. Be prepared. Pack your kit the day before, lay it all out, make sure you've got eyes on all your kit and you know exactly where it is. Number 3, look after your kit. If you look after your kit will look after you. This is essential kit that you need to be able to survive out on your trip or your excursion. If it breaks while you're out in the field, you have kit with you that should allow you to be able to repair it. If you look at your 10 seasons 5 ability, for example, you've then got your cargo tape to be able to repair any holes in your tarp, your tent or your poncho. If it's your physical clothing that's damaged, you'll have your cotton needle, and then you'll then also have your cotton thread as well to be able to sew that up, just to hold out until you can get back. If it's completely damaged when you're out there, take it home with you to then try and repair it a little bit better, or you may have to get a new one. So there. Number 4, know your own limitations. Don't set yourself a challenge to achieve that is unachievable. If you're a beginner and you don't have the skill set, learn how to do it before you go out and embark on it. Through personal experience, I've met individuals within the bushcraft community who think they know what they're doing, however they don't, and then they've either caused themselves an injury, or they've gotten cold or gotten wet, or they've just genuinely looked like a bit of a fool because they've boasted that they know what they're talking about but they don't, or they've piled in on out in the hills. They've had to slow everyone down because they're just physically not ready for it. So if you want to go out and be able to achieve something, you have to be able to go out within that limitation. The more you learn, the bigger them limitations are. So don't get too zealous. Crawl, walk, and then run. Which brings us on to number 5, practice. Practice doesn't make perfect, practice makes better. I've been doing this for a number of years now, and I'm still learning constantly. Like my assistant chief instructor James, he does a completely different style of bushcraft to what I do. He learns off me constantly, I learn off him constantly. And Alex down on KoloKraft, I'm sure he does the same, because I've definitely learned some stuff off him and the teams we've met up together. So that is my 5 top tips, tricks for bushcraft beginners. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to send you down to James, down in Somerset, down the south. So James, over to you, mate.
Thanks, Grayzy. I'm James from Northern Limits Bushcraft and Survival, and I'm going to take you through my 5 top tips for being in the wilderness. Now, these are learnt from my own experience or experience of others or what I've researched, but mostly through my own experience. So tip number 1, always carry a backup way of starting fire. Don't rely on one method of starting fire, always carry a backup, whether it be a ferrocerium rod or something like a lighter. And also think about backup tinder as well. So in the winter I will carry a fatwood stick, which I will shave down to help me start fire, or I will take cotton wool buds that are saturated in petroleum jelly, because they take a spark like that. So always have a backup method if your first method doesn't work. Secondly, tip number 2, think about preparing your fire or firewood before sundown. Collect all your tinder and all your fuel logs together and have it all laid out before it gets dark. Myself, I made this mistake once where I tried to get a fire going during the dark, and I was quite prone to injuring myself. Luckily I didn't, but I could have easily injured myself. So try and get the fire going before it gets dark. Obviously you have to prioritise shelter first, but then do your fire. But think about this early. Tip number 3, carry equipment that either has multiple uses or lose unnecessary equipment. So what I mean by that is when you're in the wild, you don't really want to be having a lot of unnecessary equipment on your back. So that's why some people will think about multiple uses for that piece of equipment. It's just extra weight, and the space in your rucksack could be used for other things, such as extra food. So lay out all your kit at home, like I do sometimes, and I think about how I'm going to be using that kit when I'm out in the wilderness. And if it's something that I'm definitely not going to use, I won't bring it. I'll use that space for extra food or extra water. Kits such as first aid kit might not be used, but that's safety equipment, so always carry safety equipment with you. That's a definite must. Okay, tip number 4, research blade safety such as axes, knives and saws, okay, to prevent any unnecessary injury. That's a must. You don't really want to be cutting yourself, even minor or bad, out in the wilderness, because then you're prone to infection, and it could be an early trip out of the woods for you. Okay, tip number 5, always think about water when you're going out, whether it be a water source or how you're going to make it safe to drink. So firstly, your water source. I always try and go somewhere that's a fast flowing water source, because there's less pollutants in the water, and I know it's a little bit safer to drink. And making water safe to drink could be either a water filter that you can get online or in outdoor stores, or you could boil the water in your billy can or a metal water bottle. Make sure it's onto a roll and boil before it's safe to drink. So those are my 5 top tips for being in the wilderness.
Thanks very much, James, appreciate that. As I mentioned before, we're in collaboration with KoloKraft, so I'm now going to send you to the southeast to give you Alex and Camp KoloKraft. Over to you.
Alright guys, so here are my 5 top bushcraft tips. Number 1 is to define what bushcraft actually means to you. There are 101 ways of doing everything that bushcrafters do. You don't have to be a bushcraft purist and do things the way that, you know, the likes of Ray Mears and guys like that do it. Find what works for you and stick with that. You know, your skills will build as you do more and more of this stuff. So if to start with, you know, you're not 100% confident getting a fire going just from using sparks, take a lighter. It doesn't make any difference. Do some research, read some books, watch some instructional videos, you know, go on a course, whatever it might be, but find out what bushcraft means to you. Define how you want to do it. You know, you could go down the tactical route, you could go down the purist route, you could do a cross between the two. It really doesn't matter. It's all about what works for you. So tip number 1, define your version of bushcraft. Tip number 2 is to plan your trips ahead of time. Okay, get out a map, plan your route. Think about the gear that you're going to be taking. Do you know for a fact that it all works? Lay it out on the floor in front of you. If you're taking a tent for your shelter, have you set it up before? Do you know that you can do it quickly and efficiently? If you're planning to make a shelter when you're out there, are you certain that the place that you're going has the resources for you to be able to do it? Think about things like food. How much food are you going to need? Where's your water source? Are you having to take water with you? Or if you're getting it when you're out there, how are you going to clean it? How are you going to filter it to make certain that it's safe to drink? Think about the weather. Look at the weather forecast. What's the weather supposed to be doing? Do you have the appropriate clothing so that you're not going to get stuck? And really, really importantly, tell somebody else what your plan is. Tell somebody where you're going to be, how long it should take, so that if, God forbid, something does go wrong, there is somebody else out there who's expecting you and who will alert the authorities if you don't come back when you're supposed to. Tip number 3, if you don't know how to already, get a compass and learn how to use it. Don't rely on mobile phones or satellite navigation, because where you're going, you may not have a signal and you may come unstuck. Compass, really simple tool, really great to use. Get a compass, learn how to use it. Tip number 4, get yourself a decent bushcraft knife. Keep it sharp, keep it clean. There isn't much out in the wild that you can't do with a good knife. They don't have to cost the earth. Check out guys like Mora Kniff and Castrum and stuff like that. You can get them relatively cheap and they are half decent knives. So get yourself a decent knife. Learn various different splitting techniques. You don't necessarily need all of the cutting tools under the sun. You don't necessarily need axes and saws and things like that. If you have a decent knife, you can get by. Keep it sharp, keep it clean, keep it dry, and it will save your life more than once. Tip number 5, probably my most important tip, is to have fun. This stuff should be enjoyable. If you're out on a trip and you're not enjoying it, it's uncomfortable, it's unpleasant, just bail. Don't feel bad, just go home. If you're not enjoying it, don't do it. Not everyone in the world has to be a Les Stroud or a Bear Grylls and, you know, go out for 12 days in the Arctic with nothing but a pair of shorts and a knife to see how long you can survive. For me, that's not what this is about. That's not why I started my channel. I started my channel because I wanted to get back to nature, to rewild myself a little bit, and to learn how to use the natural resources that I have available to me without negatively impacting the environment. Bushcraft should be fun. If you're not having fun, just go home.
And thanks very much, Alex. Greatly appreciate it as ever. There you go, have it, ladies and gentlemen. That's 5 tips from 3 different instructors. Bonus or what? 15 tips just for you beginners. Thanks very much. I'm Grayzy from Northern Limits Bushcraft and Survival, and I'll see you next time.